My name is Clara, and I'm 36 years old. 5 years. I'd just poured 5 years of my life into earning a master's degree, a brutal marathon of full-time work, late-night classes, and raising 2 children. As I stood on that brightly lit stage, the weight of the academic gown heavy on my shoulders, I should have been bursting with pride. But all I could focus on was a gaping hole in the audience, a row of 5 empty seats I'd reserved for the family who chose not to come. Holding my diploma, I was an island of solitude in a sea of celebration. It was the biggest achievement of my life, and for them, it was just another Tuesday. The final twist of the knife came after the ceremony, when my phone buzzed alive with an urgent message from my husband. If you've ever felt the sharp sting of being let down by the very people who should have been cheering you on, tell me where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to connect with a community that knows the sting of being let down by your own family cuts deeper than anything else. For the last 12 years, I'd been married to Mark, a 39-year-old software architect at a thriving tech firm in Denver. We had 2 kids together, Leo, our 15-year-old son, deep in the throes of that classic teenage phase where his parents were the most embarrassing people on earth, and Maya, our sharp 12-year-old daughter, who was becoming more absorbed in her own social world by the day. We lived in a comfortable but unassuming 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, complete with a small yard where the kids played on the rare days the Colorado sun wasn't too intense. I worked at Apex Capital Group, a respectable mid-sized investment firm where I'd been a financial analyst for almost a decade. My job was demanding, frequently pushing past 50 hours a week, especially during the chaotic tax season or when a major client report was due. I was skilled at my work, meticulous with numbers and patient with high-strung clients, but I watched year after year as my male colleagues, often with less experience, climbed the ladder ahead of me. "You need more credentials, Clara," my boss would say during my annual reviews. "A bachelor's in finance is solid, but it's the baseline. To get to senior management, you need a master's." After the 3rd time I was overlooked for a promotion I knew I deserved, I made a vow to myself. I would get that master's in finance and economics, no matter the cost. The local university offered an evening program tailored for working professionals. It would be a 5-year commitment of part-time study, but I saw it as a necessary investment in my future. What I hadn't fully grasped was just how punishing that schedule would become. My day started at 5:30 a.m., preparing breakfast and packing lunches before heading to the office for a full day's work. 3 evenings a week, I'd rush from my desk to a classroom, sitting in lectures from 6 to 9 p.m., only to come home exhausted to a sink full of dishes and homework that needed to be checked. Weekends, which should have been for rest and family, became a frantic race to complete my own assignments. I'd lock myself in the home office for hours, while Mark took the kids to their soccer games or to birthday parties. "Mom's always studying," I once heard Leo mutter to his father. "She never has time for us anymore." Those words were like daggers, but I tried to push the guilt away. This was temporary, I told myself. This was for our collective future. Once I had the degree and the promotion that would inevitably follow, we'd have more financial security. We could finally afford that trip to Hawaii the kids were always dreaming about. My relationship with my older brother, Evan, only added to the complexity. At 39, Evan was the undisputed golden child. He ran a successful real estate development company, lived in a sprawling house with a mountain view, and, as a childless bachelor, had the freedom to pursue expensive hobbies like skiing in Aspen and collecting rare whiskeys. Our parents, who lived a few states over in Arizona, made no effort to conceal their favoritism. Growing up, they never missed one of his baseball games, but often forgot about my debate tournaments. As adults, they'd fly out in a heartbeat to help Evan with a minor home renovation, but would have a dozen excuses when I needed a babysitter during my final exams. "Your brother is just more fun to be around," my mother once told me, with no hint of irony after I'd confronted her about the imbalance. "You're always so serious, so buried in your responsibilities." It was a cruel twist that being the responsible one was somehow a character flaw. Despite these undercurrents of frustration, I pushed through my studies. I wrote term papers long after the kids were asleep, often fueled by coffee until 1 or 2 in the morning. I crammed with flashcards during my lunch breaks. I sacrificed our annual family vacations, using the time off to get ahead on my coursework instead. When friends invited us to parties or weekend getaways, I almost always had to decline, knowing every spare hour was precious. Mark had been supportive initially, picking up more of the household chores and offering encouragement when I was on the verge of burnout. But as the years stretched on, his patience frayed. "How much longer is this going to take?" he'd ask with growing irritation. "The kids hardly see you." "Just 2 more years," I'd promise. Then 1 more year. Then just a few more months. By the time graduation was finally on the horizon, our marriage was strained. The love was still there, but it was buried under layers of distance and quiet resentment. Mark had built his own routine, a life that often didn't include me, taking the kids to community events or to visit his parents on his own. I had missed so many family dinners, school plays, and weekend trips that it had become their new normal to function as a trio. That was why the graduation ceremony held such profound importance for me. It wasn't just about the diploma or the career it would unlock. It was my chance to show my family, especially my children, that all those years of sacrifice had been for a reason. I wanted them to see me walk across that stage, to feel a surge of pride for their mother, to understand that ambition and education weren't just for young people. I craved that moment of shared victory, that collective celebration that would wash away the exhaustion of the last 5 years. When I graduate, I told Mark about 6 months before my program ended, I want everyone there. You, the kids, my parents, even my sister Sarah from Portland. This is going to be a huge day for all of us. He nodded, squeezing my hand. Of course, hon. We wouldn't miss it for the world. Those words would come to echo in my mind, hollow and meaningless. 6 months before the ceremony, I began planning with the precision of a military operation. This was going to be one of the most significant days of my life, and I wanted it to be perfect. The university sent out an email with all the details, including the strict limit on guest tickets. I immediately reserved the maximum of 6, 1 for Mark, 1 for Leo, 1 for Maya, 1 each for my mom and dad, and 1 for my sister Sarah. I called my parents in Arizona to give them the date, which they dutifully noted on their kitchen calendar. We'll do our best to be there, sweetie, my mother said, her tone already laced with a familiar non-committal vagueness. But I chose to be optimistic. This was my master's graduation. Surely they would make it a priority. Next, I contacted Sarah, who lived in Portland with her husband and their 3 kids. Unlike our parents, she sounded genuinely thrilled for me. I am so proud of you, sis, she gushed. Working full-time, raising kids, and getting a master's? You're a superhero. I'll book my flight next week. With my family's attendance seemingly locked in, I focused on the celebration. I found a highly rated Italian restaurant near the university, La Stella Trattoria, that could host our party of 8. It was pricey, almost $300 just for the reservation deposit, but I figured it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I paid it without a second thought. Since my parents would be traveling, I also booked them a nice room at the Hilton downtown, using a stash of hotel points I'd saved from work trips. Everything was lining up, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel a pure, unadulterated excitement about my academic journey. 2 months before the big day, I splurged on a new dress, a chic navy blue sheath with delicate lace detailing. It was sophisticated enough for the ceremony, but elegant enough for the dinner after. I booked appointments for my hair, makeup, and a manicure for the morning of graduation. These were luxuries I rarely afforded myself, always prioritizing family expenses. But for this one day, I wanted to feel special. "Mom, you look so pretty," Maya said when I tried on the dress at home, "like in the old pictures when you and Dad got married." Her innocent comment brought a lump to my throat. I couldn't remember the last time I'd dressed up for anything besides a corporate function. The relentless grind of my life had left no room for vanity. 3 weeks before graduation, the first domino fell. Evan called, a sporadic occurrence that usually meant he wanted something or was bored. After some perfunctory questions about my studies, he dropped the bomb. "By the way, I'm throwing a huge barbecue at my place on May 15th. Just got a new custom-built fire pit and want to break it in. You guys should come. The kids would love the new pool." My stomach plummeted. "Evan, that's my graduation day. I told everyone months ago." A beat of silence. "Oh, right. I forgot about that. Can you move the barbecue to a different weekend?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. "Not really," he replied, his tone dismissive. "I've already invited like 40 people, including some clients who are flying in just for that weekend." "Hey, what time does your ceremony end? Maybe you can swing by after." My blood began to simmer. "The ceremony is at 2 p.m. and will probably go until 5. Then we have dinner reservations." But that's not the point. My family is supposed to be at my graduation. "Come on, Clara," Evan said with that patronizing air he'd perfected over the years. "It's just a graduation. You already did the whole cap and gown thing for your bachelor's. This is just a piece of paper saying you took a few extra classes." I was stunned into silence. A piece of paper. 5 years of my life dismissed as a few extra classes. Before I could muster a response that wasn't dripping with rage, he continued, "Look, Mom and Dad are coming to my barbecue. They already confirmed, and they're bringing Aunt Susan and Uncle Joe, who are visiting from Florida. You know how rarely we get to see them. Now I was seeing red. You told Mom and Dad about your party and locked them in before even checking with me? Even though you knew my graduation was this month? I didn't realize it was such a monumental event," he said defensively. "You're 36, not 22. It's not your first time at the rodeo." We argued for another 10 minutes, with Evan refusing to yield and me growing more and more distraught. When I finally hung up, I was shaking with anger. I immediately dialed my mother, hoping she would intervene. "Mom, Evan scheduled his barbecue on my graduation day. You can't go to that instead." Her response was infuriatingly neutral. "Oh dear, what terrible timing. Can't you two just reschedule?" "No, Mom. The university doesn't move its commencement ceremony for one person. This has been on the calendar for a year. I told you about it 6 months ago." "Well, it's just so difficult," she sighed. "Your aunt and uncle from Florida will be there, and you know how your father loves Evan's barbecues. Can't we try to do both?" The conversation devolved from there, with my mother suggesting I was being selfish for not understanding the family's predicament, as if their attendance at both events was even remotely possible given the timing. That evening, I recounted the entire saga to Mark, my voice thick with tears, expecting his full-throated support. He listened patiently, rubbing my back as I vented my frustration. "Your family has always been like this," he said in a soothing voice. "But hey, you'll still have us there cheering for you. Me and the kids will be your fan club. That's what really matters, right?" His words were a balm. He was right. As long as my own little family, my husband and my children, was there, I could weather the storm of my parents' predictable favoritism. After all, Mark and the kids had seen the daily struggle up close. They knew what this accomplishment cost me. "Promise me you three will be there," I said, looking him in the eye. "No matter what." "I promise," Mark replied, kissing my forehead. Nothing could keep us away. I clung to that promise like a lifeline. The day before graduation was a whirlwind of final preparations. I picked up my cap and gown, carefully hanging them in our bedroom. I polished my best heels, a pair of black pumps that were both professional and comfortable. I charged my phone and camera, determined to capture every moment. My excitement was now heavily laced with anxiety. I had received a formal, almost corporate-sounding email from my parents 2 days prior, politely explaining that they would be attending Evan's barbecue after all. They promised to take me out to dinner the next time they were in Denver. I read it once and deleted it without replying. Sarah had also called, her voice full of genuine regret, to explain that her youngest had come down with a nasty case of the chickenpox, making travel impossible. I completely understood her situation, but it was just one more empty seat, one more person missing. "At least I still have you three," I said to Mark as we made dinner that evening. He just nodded, his attention fixed on his phone. He'd been texting a lot all day, but I didn't think much of it until my own phone rang. It was my mother. "Clara, I just wanted to call and see if the kids are still coming to Evans tomorrow. He's setting up a bunch of games for the children, and Maya and Leo would have a blast." I nearly dropped the pan of roasted vegetables I was holding. "What?" "No, Mom. The kids are coming to my graduation, with Mark." Oh, she sounded genuinely puzzled. Evans said that Mark mentioned he might bring them to the barbecue. There will be several other families there with kids their age, and Evan even hired a lifeguard for the pool. They'd have so much more fun than sitting through a long ceremony. My hand was trembling as I set the pan down on the stove. I turned to look at Mark, who was now intensely focused on mincing garlic. "Mom, I have to go," I said, my voice tight, and ended the call. The kitchen was thick with a deafening silence. "Mark," I finally said, "why does my mother think you and the kids are going to Evan's barbecue tomorrow?" He wouldn't look at me. I might have mentioned to Evan that the kids were asking about the party. They heard about the pool and the games from their cousins. "And you told him you were bringing them? Without even talking to me about it?" Mark finally looked up, his expression a frustrating mix of guilt and defiance. "Clara, be reasonable. The ceremony is 3 hours of sitting still while they read off 1,000 names. The kids will be bored to tears, so instead of teaching them the value of supporting their family and celebrating a major accomplishment, you're teaching them that a pool party is more important?" My voice was rising. This graduation represents 5 years of me sacrificing time with them to build a better life for all of us. Don't you think it's important for them to see the payoff? Mark let out a heavy sigh. "Of course I do, but they really want to go to the barbecue. Leo's been talking nonstop about the swimming, and Maya heard her friend Jessica from school will be there. Evan invited her whole family." "So what are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew the devastating answer. "That you plan to take our children to a party instead of watching their mother graduate with honors? Can't we compromise?" he suggested, his tone maddeningly calm. Maybe I take the kids to the barbecue for a bit, and we all meet you at the restaurant after. Or I could come to the ceremony by myself and you can meet us at Evan's place later." I stared at him, aghast. "Do you hear yourself? This isn't a business negotiation, Mark. This is about you being there for me, for one day. After 5 years of this." "You're being dramatic," he muttered. "It's just a graduation ceremony. Just a graduation ceremony." The exact same words my brother had used, as if my achievement was a footnote, a minor inconvenience in their weekend plans. 5 years, Mark," I said, my voice cracking. 5 years of missed bedtimes, of studying until 2 a.m., of using every vacation day for school instead of for us. 5 years of you complaining that I was never around, of the kids feeling neglected, of me drowning in guilt. And now that it's finally over, now that I'm asking for one single day of recognition, you're all choosing a barbecue. "They should get to decide for themselves," he countered. "They're 15 and 12. Of course they'd choose a pool party over a formal ceremony. That's why we're the parents. We're supposed to make decisions based on values, not just what's the most fun." The argument escalated. Leo and Maya came downstairs, drawn by the noise. When they understood the conflict, they predictably sided with their father. Leo declared that graduation ceremonies were lame, and Maya tearfully asked why I was trying to ruin their fun. I went to bed without dinner, too sick with anger and hurt to eat. Mark slept on the couch. As I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I felt a profound sense of despair. The irony was suffocating. I had done this all for them, and in the end, they couldn't give me one afternoon in return. I cried myself into a fitful sleep, my beautiful navy dress hanging in the corner like a specter of the empty celebration to come. I woke up feeling groggy and disoriented. For a fleeting moment, the excitement of graduation day bubbled up, and then the crushing reality of the previous night's fight came rushing back. The other side of the bed was empty and cold. Downstairs, the house was silent. On the kitchen counter was a single, hastily written note. "Took the kids to Evans early to help set up. We'll try to make it back for your ceremony. Congrats." Mark. The note felt like a punch to the gut. Not even a real conversation, just a cowardly retreat. I crumpled it up and threw it away. The clock showed 9:30 a.m. My hair appointment was at 10, makeup at 11. The ceremony started at 2 p.m. Despite the hollow ache in my chest, I went through the motions. The hairstylist and makeup artist did their best to create a polished facade, expertly concealing the puffiness around my eyes. Back home, I slipped into my new dress, positioned the cap on my head, and zipped up the gown. I took a selfie in the mirror, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes, and posted it on social media with a generic caption about hard work paying off. The congratulatory comments from coworkers and old friends started rolling in, a stark contrast to the silence from my own family. I sent one last text to Mark before I left. Heading to the ceremony. Are you still planning on coming? The 3 dots appeared, vanished, and reappeared. Finally, a reply. Leo took a bad fall running around the pool. Nothing serious, but lots of tears. Might be late. Save us seats if you can. I didn't reply. There were no seats to save. It was another flimsy excuse. The drive to the university was a blur. I found my place in the alphabetical lineup of graduates, keeping my head down as I was surrounded by the joyous chatter of families and friends. My phone buzzed with encouraging texts from Linda, my closest friend from work, and from Professor Albright, my favorite instructor. Their kindness only highlighted the void left by my family. As we processed into the vast auditorium, I scanned the sea of faces, a part of me still foolishly hoping to see Mark and the kids rushing in late. The speeches began, words about perseverance and dedication washing over me. When my department was called, I stood and waited for my name. In that moment, I made a choice. This was for me, Clara Ann Reed, Master of Finance and Economics, with honors. I walked across the stage, my head held high. I shook the dean's hand, accepted the diploma case, and moved the tassel on my cap from right to left to the sound of polite, anonymous applause. After returning to my seat, a strange sense of calm settled over me. The hurt was still there, but it had hardened into resolve. When the ceremony finally concluded, I lingered on the lawn, an awkward observer of other people's happy reunions. I checked my phone. No new messages. I scrolled through social media, and there it was, a photo Evan had just posted. My parents, Mark, Leo, and Maya, all beaming, gathered around a fire pit, roasting marshmallows. The timestamp showed it was posted 30 minutes ago, right in the middle of my graduation. I found a quiet bench behind the library and finally let myself break down, ugly, heaving sobs that ruined my expensive makeup. When the tears subsided, I pulled out my phone to cancel our dinner reservation. As I was looking up the number, a text from Mark popped up. "We need to talk. Urgently." Immediately after, I noticed the notification banner at the top of my screen. 45 missed calls from Mark, all within the last hour. A cold dread washed over me. I had silenced my phone for the ceremony. 45 missed calls wasn't a casual check-in. It was an emergency. Had something happened? An accident? With trembling fingers, I called him back. He answered on the first ring. "Clara, thank God." His voice was frantic. "I've been trying to reach you for over an hour." "What happened?" I demanded, already striding quickly toward my car. "Is everyone okay?" "It's Leo," Mark said, the words tumbling out. He was climbing on that new water slide Evan installed, showing off for his cousins, and he fell. "We're at Memorial Hospital. The doctor thinks he dislocated his shoulder. I'll be right there," I said, breaking into a run. "Is he in a lot of pain?" They gave him something for it, but he's really shaken up. He keeps asking for you. That last sentence sent a bitter wave through me. Now suddenly, I was needed. I sped to the hospital, my graduation gown a crumpled heap in the passenger seat. I rushed into the emergency room, still in my navy dress, my hair now a mess. The receptionist directed me to Bay 7. I pulled back the curtain, and the scene stopped me dead. Leo was on the gurney, his right arm in a temporary sling, his face pale and tear-streaked. And surrounding him were not just Mark and Maya, but my parents and Evan, all looking at me with a mixture of relief and guilt. "Mom," Leo whispered, his voice small. "You came." I went straight to his side, my anger momentarily eclipsed by maternal instinct. "Of course I came, sweetie. How are you feeling?" "The doctor." "A doctor." Ramirez explained it was a clean dislocation. Painful, but they could reset it, and he'd be in a sling for several weeks. As I was absorbing this, my mother patted Leo's leg. He was so brave, barely cried at all. The fact that they were all here, a united front for a dislocated shoulder, when they couldn't be bothered to show up for my graduation, felt like a fresh wound. Evan stepped forward, a look of contrition on his face. "Thank God you got here, sis. The little guy's been asking for you non-stop." Something in his casual tone, as if this was just a normal family crisis, made me snap. "Thank God I got here," I repeated, my voice dangerously low. As opposed to where I was before, graduating alone while my entire family was at a barbecue. An uncomfortable silence filled the small cubicle. Mark shot me a warning look, but I was past caring. I just spent the most important day of my professional life completely and utterly alone, I continued, my voice trembling. No husband, no children, no parents. not a single text message of congratulations, because a barbecue was more important than 5 years of my hard work. "Clara," my father began, "this is hardly the time or place." "When would be a better time, Dad?" I shot back, tears welling. "When I'm back to being the responsible one who puts everyone else's needs first, while none of you can spare a single afternoon for me." "Honey, we didn't realize it meant this much to you," my mother said, looking genuinely bewildered. "It's just a ceremony, I repeated, the words hollow. "Just a degree, just an accomplishment, just my life." I looked at Leo, his anxious eyes darting between the adults. He didn't deserve to be in the middle of this. "You're right," I conceded, taking a deep breath to compose myself. "Leo needs us to focus on him." I turned my full attention to my son, my voice steady and reassuring as I explained what the doctors were going to do. When the nurse came to take Leo to have his shoulder reset, I went with him, desperate for a break from the suffocating presence of my family. As we walked down the hall, Leo leaned against me. "I'm sorry I missed your graduation, Mom," he said quietly. "I really wanted to go to the party, and Dad said it would be okay." "It's not your fault, sweetie," I said, my heart aching. "Adults made those decisions, not you. But you're sad." "Yes," I admitted, "I am sad, but I'm also very proud of myself, and I hope one day you'll understand why today was so important." "I'm proud of you too, Mom," he said, "even if I didn't see you get your diploma thing." His simple, honest words were the first real acknowledgement I had received all day, and they meant more than anything my parents or brother could have said. After Leo's shoulder was reset and he was settled with a new sling, we returned to the bay to find it empty except for Mark. He explained that my parents and Evan had gone to the cafeteria. I picked up the discharge papers, my mind still in efficient mother mode. "I'll take him home," I said. "You can go get the prescription." "Clara," Mark began hesitantly, "about today." "Not now," I cut him off, "not in front of Leo." Just then, my phone rang. It was Linda. "Clara, where are you? I've been looking all over for you. I had completely forgotten we were supposed to meet." "Linda, I'm so sorry. I'm at Memorial Hospital. Leo had an accident." "Oh my God, is he okay?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. "A dislocated shoulder. We're about to head home. Do you need anything? Food? Someone to pick up the prescription?" Her immediate, unconditional offer of help brought a fresh lump to my throat. "Actually," I said, "would you mind coming over later? I could really use a friend." "Of course, I'll bring dinner. Text me your address." After I hung up, my parents and Evan returned carrying coffees. My mother started fussing over Leo's new sling. "We're taking Leo home," I announced. "He needs to rest." "We'll come with you," my mother declared. "You'll need help." "No," I said, the word coming out with a firmness that surprised even me. "Thank you, but no. Linda is bringing dinner, and I can manage my own son." The stunned silence that followed was a small, vindictive pleasure. "But we came all this way," my father protested. "You can go back to Evans," I suggested coolly. "I'm sure the barbecue is still going. I need some space right now." We parted awkwardly in the hospital parking lot. At home, I got Leo settled on the couch and then went upstairs to change. I peeled off the navy blue dress, now a symbol of betrayal, and put on comfortable clothes. When I came back down, Mark was in the kitchen. "You promised," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You promised you would be there." "I know," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "And I'm sorry. When Evan invited us, the kids got so excited and it just seemed like a harmless compromise." "A compromise implies both sides agree, Mark," I said bitterly. "You made a decision to put my accomplishment last." "You're right. I screwed up badly. But does one mistake erase 12 years of marriage? Supporting me?" I repeated in disbelief. You complained constantly about my schedule. You made me feel guilty for studying, and on the one day, the single day I asked you to show up, you chose my brother's party instead. We talked for hours, more honestly than we had in years. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked. "How do I fix this?" I shook my head. "I don't know if you can, right now. I need time. I need space to think. I'm going to stay at the hotel I booked for my parents. Just for a week." "A week?" "Clara, be reasonable. Leo has a dislocated shoulder, and Leo has a father who is apparently capable of making unilateral decisions," I replied sharply. "You'll be fine." The doorbell rang. It was Linda with dinner, a beautiful leather portfolio embossed with my initials, and a card signed by our co-workers. "We are so proud of you," she said, hugging me tightly. Her simple validation was all I had wanted from my family. Later, I explained my temporary absence to the children, reassuring them it wasn't a punishment. The next morning, I packed a bag and checked into the downtown hotel. The irony was not lost on me. For the first time in years, I was putting my own needs first, and the guilt I expected to feel was replaced by a quiet sense of self-respect. Over the next week, I received a flood of apologetic texts and calls. I spent the time reflecting, visiting Leo daily, and having lunch with Maya. I spoke with my boss, who officially offered me the senior analyst position. By the end of the week, I knew what I had to do. When I returned home, I was ready for the hard conversations. Mark and I sat at the kitchen table. "I need respect," I told him. "A true partner who values my goals as much as his own." He listened, and he agreed. We made a plan for practical changes. I had similar difficult conversations with my parents and with Evan individually. I didn't demand apologies. I established boundaries. I would no longer accept being an afterthought. A month after my lonely graduation, Evan organized a surprise party just for me. He invited my friends and colleagues, gave a speech acknowledging my hard work, and my parents brought a framed professional photograph of me in my graduation regalia. It was a beautiful evening, representing a genuine shift. As I prepared to hang my diploma in my new office, I reflected on the journey. The empty seats at my graduation had felt like a rejection, but they had forced me to confront a painful truth, and in doing so to find my own strength. I had learned that my worth wasn't determined by anyone else's recognition, but by my own sense of accomplishment. Sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones that lead to the most profound growth. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family members who took you for granted? How did you navigate that? Share your experience in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about navigating complex family dynamics and finding your own voice. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your achievements deserve to be celebrated, even if you have to be your own biggest cheerleader. End of story.